Hello guys, welcome back to our third podcast. I'm Kamran,
I'm Unmin.
and on today's podcast, we'll be talking about mental health.
So, what is good mental health? Let me hit you guys with the Google definition. Good mental health is characterized by a person's ability to fulfill a number of key functions and activities, including the ability to learn, the ability to feel, express, and manage a range of positive and negative emotions. So, if you're constantly feeling the same emotion for a long period of time, you probably have bad mental health. Mental health in these recent years has been made more aware of, but it's still something we cannot physically see. So some may not accept it as an issue, but more and more people are slowly realizing this now. So right now, I would like to introduce my cousin, Alicia Chin, who is a first-year chemistry student from Imperial College London, to share her story about her mental health story. And yeah, so let's give a round of applause for Alicia.
Ooh. Hi guys.
If Alicia, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Alicia. So yeah, I just finished my first year, year 2 in September. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so right now you're in Malaysia.
I'm home right now.
Okay, so what is your plan right now currently for next school year?
Yeah, my plan is to go back. I struggled a lot with transitioning from an American school to like A-level type British education. So if I stop a whole year, and even though it's safe here, it's gonna be way too hard for me to get back on my legs, to get back on track again.
So previously you were in an American private school in Malaysia, and for uni you transitioned to a UK system in London. So how was that for you?
It was hard. British education is on a whole nother level. So yeah, I had to put in way more effort than those who did A levels.
I'm glad you're coping well now. So we can move on to the topic of mental health now.
Yeah, sounds good.
So what issues did you have, and when did you recognize that you have this mental health problem?
I started getting symptoms when I was 14, 15. It started from a fallout of a friend group, and of course that really hurt me. I spent multiple nights crying myself to sleep and feeling just this feeling, this pain in my chest, and like I can't even describe it. It's like it's just overwhelming of me not wanting to go to school, not wanting to do anything. I don't want to see anyone. And yeah, lots of crying, like a lot. That's when I knew like something was up, like I'm not okay. And I told my parents about it, and they sent me to counseling at first. But it took me a long time to get actual help, which is we can talk about that later. But as of this moment, my two main issues are anxiety and depression.
So can you describe some of the symptoms of depression? Like how do you differentiate depression and just feeling sad? Because I know some people just feel sad, but it's not to the extent of depression. How do you differentiate those two?
With depression, you can't even fight it. Like when you're sad, you can be like, okay, I'll do things to cheer myself up. But depression, you just feel a physical weight on yourself. You don't move. you don't have appetite to eat, it really does consume your life, and I would never wish it on anyone, like even my worst enemy. It's not fun.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of avoidance. I think that's the main symptom, avoidance, like don't want to do anything.
Similar, or is it like different?
When you think anxiety, think panic. Like some people sweat from their hands. Some people feel like they're gonna die, like their world is spinning. But from personal experience, my anxiety is just I get shortness of breath, tightness in my chest, so my breathing gets like unsteady and really quick, and I just need to find balance. I need to get myself to a safe place so I can breathe normally again, talk myself out of it, stuff like that.
So I've heard there's different triggers for anxiety for different people. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Like with mental health, it's very personal. And as I've said before, like a lot of the times when I talk about these things, I say from my experience, because everyone's experience is totally different.
No, it's just the triggers of anxiety for different people.
Yeah.
Because it's really subjective. It's based on the person and how they cope with it.
Is there any like certain scenarios or situation you feel depressed or like when anxiety kicks in? Is there any like
so basically
big
your
restrictions
triggers? Yeah.
Oh, this is a funny one. When I first went into therapy here in Malaysia, it's also CBT. The doctor, the psychologist, told me to identify my triggers, because that would help me find out the deeper reason why I'm getting anxious about things and stuff. So I spent like a few months observing myself. I don't remember the rest, but there's one trigger that I do remember. Do you guys remember like a few years ago, there's these paint mixing videos on Instagram that went viral, like of acrylic paint, like you guys don't know?
Of the acrylic paint?
Yeah, like they mix it with the paint knife, and they mix the paint, and there's this like scraping sound when they mix it. That triggers my anxiety like instantly.
So it's really random. It's really random.
It can be anything. Very subjective.
It doesn't have to correlate with your thought.
No, it can be just a sound. Sounds. Like you're surrounding your environment basically.
So you would say people with anxiety would have to be extra careful in an environment that is not familiar to them, because certain things may happen and they may not expect it, and that might trigger their anxiety.
Yeah, it's always good to know what triggers you. Like if you know like loud sounds trigger you, don't go to clubs. Or if you know a certain person that keeps doing something, like some like pet peeves do trigger some people. So if you know that this person keeps doing that, maybe stay away from that person. That's why it's good to identify these triggers, to just keep yourself safe. Like it's not fun to go through a panic attack when you're in public or something.
So the important thing would be to identify your own triggers and help yourself in that way.
Yeah.
To not expose yourself to those kind of scenarios.
Yeah, just navigate around it, because it's already hard living with it, and you don't want to go through another panic attack. So yeah, just be smart.
Yeah. I have a question. So when they all started, so when you start recognizing that this is not normal, that you need to seek for help, was that in uni or was that in Malaysia? Yeah.
That was in Malaysia when I was 14, 15. I guess I kind of already knew that I've been really scared of things when I was younger, and I first went into counseling because of a really funny reason. I told my mom I'm insecure about the peach fuzz on my upper lip, and my mom's like, you need therapy. So she sent me to counseling. But all I wanted was laser hair removal. But I guess I got counseling out of it. And with that, I learned a bit about myself, and I had suspected generalized anxiety disorder and OCD. That's also suspected. I haven't been diagnosed. Suspected OCD from what I told. Oh, I can't remember why, but that's the outcome of the counseling, and I didn't really find it helpful, as in like helping me. The only real help that I got that I would say that really helped me was when I was in London. Yeah, but when I first found out, 14, 15, kept crying a lot, insecure, scared. But yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, it's so long ago. I think that's it.
So you said London was when you actually got real help, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was the difference between the counseling you got in London and in Malaysia? Or was it just like a change of your attitude and thinking?
So, counseling and actual therapy, like from a psychologist, is different. I actually asked my psychologist here in Penang about it, and she said, counseling is to make you feel good. Psychology, like actual therapy, not necessarily trying to make you feel good, but it's trying to help you in the future to reshape your thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I went through counseling, didn't like it, went through therapy, it's okay. But the real therapy I got in London actually helped because it felt more concrete. Like I can actually grasp the material. So I can talk a bit about that later. But I got like worksheets. I got booklets to read through. I had to keep track of what I did every day to identify all those things. And it felt like I was actually doing something to help myself. And I think that's why it was most effective for me.
Okay. I think that is also subjective because different people might need different treatment and it might work differently for others. So if you're really struggling, you should really try out different methods to help yourself cope with this.
Yeah, I always say go for counseling first because normally each university, each school, they have their own counseling department, and you can easily get help there. With the therapy, like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, I got from the NHS. I went through about 2 months of just going to my GP, telling them, hey, I need this, like I'm not feeling well, and they gave me medication and stuff. And yeah, 3 months to actually sit with a psychologist and got proper help, like the help I needed. So if you feel like you're drowning, I guess, and you feel like you have symptoms, like start early. Don't drag it to the end. It gets worse.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about if you're someone who's, I guess, friends or close with another person who's experiencing a mental health issue, how you can recognize it and how you can help them. So I actually have a story to share. So basically, me and Alicia, we grew up together. We were like best friends since young, right? And when she was younger, she was more outgoing. She wasn't afraid of anything. She would, I remember like she had a story in kindergarten. She would just kill a spider when everyone would run away. She would just hit it and be like laughing at everyone else who's scared. So she's that kind of person. So ever since young, I would think, yeah, she's like outgoing. She's happy all the time. But yeah, as she said, at 14, 15, she suddenly changed. She became more timid in a way, and her whole behavior just changed. When we would hang out, she would sometimes reject it. She would act different. She would be more quiet. So I think that's when you recognize that someone is experiencing something more than just a bad day. And I want to talk about how you can help them. So before I say how I helped you, can you like tell us what people in that state would want others to treat them? Like how would they want to be treated as?
It really depends on the person. Like and who you are to the person that's suffering. Like for my boyfriend, I would need him to be there. I want him to be there. For Edmund, yes, she needs to be there too because she's close to me as well. But if it's like a friend that I'm not so close to, but like a good friend, I would definitely tell them the situation, let them understand what's going on. But most of the time, I probably do need some space. And yeah, I think the most important thing is that if you're someone who's suffering with this as well, like reach out. Honestly, don't be in the dark. I remember when I first got diagnosed with depression, it was just like mild depression, but I was like, oh shit, like I'm depressed. Because I was in denial for quite a while. Because you hear about it, you hear how crap it is, and you don't want it, of course. You don't want it to be labeled as the person that's depressed. Like that's an awful label, but I wear it now and it's okay. But I really had to sit all my friends down. I don't know if Emin remembers, but it was at the start of school. I sat all my friends down. I was like, guys, I have depression. and and yeah, they didn't know how to react, and that's completely fine. No worries. As long as you remember, just like be kind to the person that's suffering. If they tell you that they need something, accommodate that. But yeah, just be kind. And for the person who's suffering, if you have depression, be kind to yourself too. You don't need that crap. You don't need to be hard on yourself.
I thought you were gonna explain your story, how you helped Alicia.
Okay. Basically, I'm not someone who who knows how to comfort someone easily. So I also had to learn from it. In the beginning, when sometimes she would break down, I would just be by her side and just comfort her, say it's all gonna be okay. It's all right. It's just a phase. It's not just a phase, but it's just at this point you might think that it's the worst, but there are brighter days and better things will come. Basically, if you're at your lowest point, you can only go uphill, right? So
That's
yeah.
true.
So
Yep.
yeah. So basically, I really sucked at consulting her, but pulled through and I got better at it. So you can learn as well.
Yeah, and I guess one thing that if you're like close friends can do is just to validate their feelings. That's so important. My parents are quite open to me getting help, but especially my dad, he's a very logical thinker, and obviously I'm not. I overthink, and sometimes when I talk to him, there's this friction because I just want to tell him how I feel. Like I you don't need to tell me what's illogical. Like I know what's logical and what's not, but it's my overthinking that causes it, and I just need to let it out. And sometimes my dad would be like, "This is where you're wrong," all the logic. And yeah, just don't dismiss how they're feeling. Be like, "Yeah, I know it sucks," and tell them like, "I'm here with you. It sucks, but you're gonna pull through." I think that's all you need to say. Just listen and say good things. We don't need logic, but maybe you do sometimes. Edmund's my logical person. Like she feeds me a bit of logic, but not too much where I go crazy. So it's like the perfect amount.
I have two
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah.
So do you feel like the school system? Because personally, I've only recognized what mental health was when I was like probably 15 or 16, so my last 2 years of high school. But before that, I didn't know what mental health was. So do you think that the school systems are lacking in terms of our education of what mental health is? Secondly, also like what advice would you give to people whose parents don't recognize mental health? Because I think the older generation don't, like my parents, they don't really recognize mental
Yeah,
health.
that
They
is a
just
struggle.
sleep. Yeah. So yeah, those are my two questions.
Okay, I'll answer the first question first. It depends on which school you went to. I went to a school that's very open. Like I have teachers who I'm close to. Like my mentor, who was my English teacher, my softball coach, my track coach. I'm close to her. She suffered from anorexia and depression and anxiety every now and then. And yeah, it's important for people to talk about these things. Like, this is not taboo. This is real life. Mental health, if you don't have a good one, it is a sickness. Sickness is not being well, and that's bad health. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just like any other. Like, if you have a cold, you treat it, right? If you have anxiety, you need to treat it too. Yeah. So it's important that people around talk about it. Like, I'm open because I feel like I need to be transparent about all these things because people around me don't really talk about it. So I don't mind sharing. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
she shares a lot.
Yeah, sometimes too much. Oh my gosh. I meet people for the first time and tell them about my depression. Like, what the hell? Yeah. But it's just important to talk about it.
Yeah.
And if you are in a position where no one does, you speak up about it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
school education system, my school was open. I don't know about yours.
I
But
think it's
it is,
also because of the Western mindset. You're more
Yeah.
open about it. So it really
it,
depends on what school you're in.
yeah, some form of like counseling thing needs to be implemented into every school, I believe. Like, you know, local schools, they have like bilet counseling, but then they don't care about what you do.
They basically just use it to discipline people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so this is just the Asian stereotype. Some parents just think maybe you will tell them, oh, I'm depressed. They might say, no, you're not. You just don't sleep enough.
Yeah.
It's because you play too many video games.
Or you don't drink enough water.
Staying up too late.
Yeah. So those parents really need to understand their kids more and really listen to them. Yeah.
Yeah, and us as the upcoming generation, I mean, we are a generation but right now, but like fight it. Fight the stereotype. It's not cool. We need to normalize talking about it.
Yeah, it's not something to be ashamed of.
It really isn't. If you talk about it, you realize more and more that this is something that a lot of people struggle with. Just normalize it, basically.
I feel like people who talk about it become stronger. And others view them as stronger people too, because they realize, whoa, she's fighting this battle. She's she's not perfect, but she's learning and she's doing so much to help herself grow. So yeah, I think it's actually a really brave and powerful thing to talk about.
Yeah. And also with like the parents thing, if your parent tells you like, oh, it's just a phase and whatever, I'm assuming most listeners are university students.
Yeah.
Right? You don't live with your parents anymore. The NHS covers therapy. It's free. Use your health insurance. Get help.
Yeah, so basically that's what you did. You got therapy for free.
Yeah. But I have to pay for my medication, Alicia. But that's fine. Yeah, I'm lucky enough in the position where my parents are like, okay, maybe it's illogical, but we support you in what you want to do. I remember therapy here in Penang is like 200 ringgit or like 250 per session, like an hour. And I just felt so guilty. Like every time I finish a treatment, I have to go to the counter and pay. And I went to maybe like 7-8 sessions, and like that's a lot of money. But with like the NHS, it's free, so.
It's even worse when you're paying and you're not feeling improvement.
That's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you felt no improvement in Malaysia, but only in the UK when you started doing therapy. Is there like any specific thing that you think they did differently in order for you to get better?
It's the worksheets.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. In Penang, everything was verbal. She did write some stuff down for me, and it helped for a bit. But a lot of it, it's just like after the sessions, I'm like, whoa, so what do I do now? Like, there's so much to think about because we talk about a lot of stuff and it's draining. I mean, every therapy session is going to be draining, but it's good to know like when you're drained and you're like, okay, I have a workbook to go through, I have something to focus my energy on. And with
outside of therapy.
I mean, this is part of therapy, the workbook.
I mean, outside of the session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one in Penang, it's just a lot of talking, and you have to remember what you talked about. So
What
it's
are
like,
some common questions they ask you? Are there some questions they ask you every week and see your progress based on those questions?
so for the one in UK, they have like a survey that you have to complete before every session, and it's like a scale of 0 to 10, I think, of like I'm trying to remember. Like, have you been like avoiding people? Have you been avoiding tasks? There's like sections on anxiety, low mood, and yeah, I think those are the two. Oh, I can't remember. But basically, it's a survey, and low numbers means that you're doing better. And then with lower I got progressively like lower numbers throughout the whole
that's
therapy.
good.
So I did well. I got something out of it.
That's good.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Okay, has having depression and anxiety affected your relationship with people close to you?
It shows true colors of people. It really does. But also you can't blame people for walking away, because it is something that's hard to deal with. Like with my boyfriend, sometimes when I get anxious and I call him, he gets anxious too, because he just hears me cry, and there's nothing he can do about it. Like, he can try and comfort me, but it's not to the extent of him healing me. So he feels trapped, like he can't help. And if you can't help, like, it's fine, just be there to listen. And if people walk away from you, just know that, like, it's not your fault. Kind of like they're not strong enough to oh, that sounds so bad. But that is the truth. Like, they're not strong enough to pull through. Like, and then she pulled through at the very end. She saw me have one of my biggest breakdowns in London.
Oh yeah.
I was
That was
just
interesting.
Yeah, I was in the bathroom like crying, and at that point it was so bad to where I felt like I never thought I could be better. That's how bad it was. I saw no hope in my future. It was just dark. And I just cried and cried, and then I told Emin I needed some space, and that's exactly what she did. So whatever the victim says, like, not victim, what's another word? the
Patient.
Patient.
the patient says, like, as a friend, listen to their needs and like help out. I told Emin I needed space, and she's like, okay, and then she fell asleep on my bed. Like,
Okay, you don't have to expose me like that.
like, it's fine. That's exactly what I needed. I needed space. So just listen, be there. Maybe every now and then check in on them. I had a friend who noticed I haven't been showing up to lectures, and he came by my hall with bubble tea. And
Aw,
like,
that's cute.
I'm not that close to him, but it's like, oh, like, there's like a warmth in my heart, like, oh, okay. That's like little things like that. If you can't be there 24/7, it's fine. A text like, how are you doing? That's enough.
Just a little sign that shows that you care and you're thinking about them.
Yeah, and like, they're there if you need them.
So another thing is that physical pain. So like mental health, do you agree like mental health is just not only emotional? Like you can feel physical pain from it.
It governs your whole body. Like, what is it? It's like your mental well-being, your emotional well-being, physical well-being. Yeah, it really, it's not just in the brain, is what I must say. When I get anxious, I get chest pains, I can't really breathe. And And depression, I feel, oh yeah, fatigue, very tired every single day. I remember I'm normally a really productive person. I work very hard. But with my depression, I remember just after I get up, I have breakfast. Like I'm okay enough that I can get up and have breakfast and get ready for the day. But after that, I just lay in my bed and watch YouTube, like a lot of YouTube. And I have no energy to do anything else. Yeah, that's one of the symptoms.
Okay.
Tiredness.
Yeah,
Um,
there's this research that said depression leads to suicide and heart disease. So heart disease, yeah, so it really correlates with the entire body and can really affect your physical health too.
since this is a student podcast and you were in London, away from your family, did that make it worse? Because you did start having symptoms of when you were 14, 15, and then when you went away to the UK, and I know UK weather can be really depressing sometimes.
Oh,
It
yeah.
affects me as well.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, so those external factors, does it make it worse, or is it the same, or yeah,
You
how
know,
did it?
my depression wasn't that bad until I went to the UK.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I live a very comfortable life at home. I think way too comfortable. That's why when I went and it kind of shook me. And
Yeah,
oh
you have to
boy.
walk everywhere, you have to do your own laundry, you have to do your own dishes, you have to cook yourself, you're away from your family, you have no one to, I mean, you can talk to them, but it's only through call, you can't feel them,
Yeah.
feel their presence.
Actually,
It's a
I
whole new
don't think
level.
it's not doing things that cause my depression. It's just like the loneliness. Because I'm an introvert as well, and making friends is so hard for me. Like the people that I'm close with in my life, and then I've known her since I was born. Since I popped out, she's my best friend. my my boyfriend, we've been together for almost 5 years, so I've never had to go out and really make friends.
Okay.
Oh, that sounds so bad. Like I only have two people in my life, but I do have friends. But um, and with anxiety and depression, it's just there's a lot of things that you have to go through all over again. It's like the introductory stage. But for me, it's a longer introduction and it gets tiring. Yeah. Wait, what was the question? Shit.
Like external
Is
factors being in the UK, does that affect your anxiety and depression?
Yeah, so not having friends and being in a very difficult situation. Yeah, I can't make friends well. Um, I have a big family. I have like 11, no. Okay, in my generation, there's 12 of us. And then my uncle, auntie, grandparents, like we have family dinners together, like almost every day, or like at least every weekday. And the fact that like I'm having most of my meals alone, at least at the start, I do go out a bit, but and it's just so quiet.
it's a big transition, yeah.
Yeah, from being around people I already know, I'm comfortable with, and moving me to a new location. I've recently noticed this. I think of myself as like a fish. You know how fishes are like, have you kept fish before?
Yes.
Okay.
Like when you keep fish, like you bring
Oh.
them to a new tank, like once you buy them, you have to like acclimate them, right? To the right temperature, and then
Yeah.
you release them, and then they're just like super sensitive. And that's like me. You bring me to a new environment, I need to adjust. Give me time to adjust.
That's true.
Yeah. So like I'm like a fish, super sensitive. Yeah. But it's good to recognize your needs.
So right now, obviously, you're in like a better state of mental health.
Hmm.
So how do you maintain your state now? What do you do? What are some of the things you do?
The main things I do is when I start getting symptoms, like relapse symptoms, I I don't drag it. I try to fight it, because when it gets worse, it's gonna be way harder. Um, one thing I learned in therapy is the balance. They call it the three-legged stool. If one is too short, it might tip over. So it's these three activities. So routine activities, necessary, and pleasurable. You need to find a balance in all these three. For me in London, I was missing out the pleasurable activities, and that's why I fell into this depressive loop. So it's good to track down what you do daily, and maybe just highlight like what's routine, what's necessary, what's pleasurable, and to see if you have a balance or not. If you don't, like let's say you're lacking routine, you're not making your bed in the morning, and that's really affecting you, just make a note out of it and try to bring yourself to do it every single day. So you feel sane, like you feel like you are a triangle. You are balanced.
So instead of complaining about the problem, you need to identify it and see what you can do to help yourself feel better in that way.
Yeah, you really have to fight it, and that's the hard part with. Oh yeah, I can talk about cognitive behavioral therapy right now. So, the therapy I got in Penang, it's a lot of trying to shift your thinking. So cognitive is thinking, behavioral is of course your behavior. The therapy in Penang is targeting my thinking to try to change my behavior to help me get out of depression. But in the UK, it's the other way around. My behavior will affect my thinking. So that's why it's so focused on like your three activities. Like you need to have a balance of these three so they'll help you. And one thing you can mark down is like if you feel like you're falling into this depressive loop, like find out what activities you've been avoiding and do that. Like I know it sucks, but it'll basically get you out of that depressive loop. I feel like I'm not explaining it that well. Hold on. Okay, so from my workbook, depressive mood. So this is the whole cycle. The first is depressive mood, and it can lead to negative thoughts. Like you'd be like, oh, like I'm alone. I feel so bad. I don't know what to do, and you have reduced activity because you think like, oh, I'll do it once I feel better. I'll do it later. Like I don't have the energy for that right now, and that can lead to a loss of sense of achievement and pleasure because you're not doing the things that you're supposed to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do the things that you're supposed to do, you get depressed. So this is a loop that you have to break. So that's basically the whole thing with behavioral activation. Do the things that you've been avoiding instead of being like, I'll do it once I feel better. Do it now. So you break the cycle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But I just don't fully understand. I think you have to be in that position to understand it fully.
Yeah. I guess just don't wait till the last minute. Don't feel like you're actually out of air. Fight it when you can, and be open about it. This is not a struggle that you should be going through on your own. Like honestly, I don't know
Yeah, it's
how
true.
I would have went through with all of it if I didn't get help from like admin, my boyfriend, my parents, or even like the psychologist I saw. Yeah, it's just like treat it like any other sickness. You get sick, you see a doctor.
I have a question. So at the beginning, you said that you found the transition to be quite difficult from like being in American school and going to the British education system. I think I have like this kind of thing. I have anxiety after my exams, so I'll just keep thinking about it. Do you have something like that? Like did being in uni made that worse or
Like
yeah
the fixation of something.
yeah
Um, like as in anxious thoughts.
yeah, do you like experience that, especially in uni? Or
I think I've had that my whole life, and uni didn't really amplify it.
okay.
But actually, being in university, okay, back in high school, I was an A student. I was high achiever, perfectionist. But now, being in uni, I just aim for a pass.
Okay.
That's all I want. So I don't really fixate on things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, understand.
Okay. So just now you talked about if you have a certain mental disorder, you have to break the cycle and seek for advice. Don't be alone in this battle. What other advice would you offer to these people who are currently fighting this problem?
Seriously, don't go through this alone. You should have people fighting alongside you. Like when I first got it, I told all my friends, I told my mentor, and it's just good for those people to be aware, just to treat you with a little more care, because you do need it. Don't be afraid to reach out and get help. Like for me, being anxious and knowing that I'll probably, like, this is before I went to the UK. I know that I'll probably get depressed, like, of course. I actually submitted my information when I'm applying for accommodation, saying that like I do suffer from anxiety and depression, and that allowed me to get a single room. I was initially assigned a twin room, and because of what I wrote, like I told them about it, I was able to get benefits that will help me. So just know that you can only get help if you reach out. Don't just sit around, wait for help to come over.
Yeah, basically don't be embarrassed about it. Share your story, tell others so they can help you.
Yeah. You'll be surprised how many people are fighting this battle too. There's a lot. And yeah, be vulnerable, because people will see you differently, not in a bad way. They'll be like, okay, she's strong. And you just be assuring yourself, know that there will be an end. Oh, I promise you there will be. You'll be okay.
There's light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, there is.
Cool. All right. Is there any other things you'd like to say, Alicia, before we end off?
Final advice.
Yeah.
Oh, don't put me on the spot like that. Final advice. I'm not sure, but if you want to message me, if you feel like you're going through the same thing, or
follow her Instagram.
Yeah, follow my Instagram. No, but seriously though, if you feel like you're going through the same thing, and I don't think I actually explain things well in this podcast. I'm not a really good talker. I need time to process my information. So if there's anything that you need me to talk about, like, I am an open book. Don't worry about me not wanting to share. Just send me a message. If you're honest with me, I'll be honest with you. Yeah.
Alright. I think from what I've listened, I think the key takeaway is to just seek for help, be vulnerable, speak out your mind, don't be scared, and just try to erase the stigma of mental health not being an issue, and try basically go out, seek for help. So I'd like to thank Alicia for sharing her story. It was really brave of you. I myself, and probably Ming, has also learned a lot from you as well about mental health being a serious issue that everybody should acknowledge. So that's the end of the podcast. So please follow our Spotify page, our YouTube page, and like our Instagram page. And thanks so much, Alicia, again, for sharing your story.
And thanks, Alicia.
See you guys next week.
Thank you for tuning in. See you next week. Bye.